Okay, we're outside today for a change, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the characters that you create and how a story can be built from that. I think most of you have pieced something by now and could be in varying stages, but I find it handy, since you have created this character here, to get to know the character a little bit. And the first thing I usually do is to name them. And the names are usually, I mean, the name could be someone you know, could be yourself, could be the description of the beast. But it usually comes from basically looking at the character you've created in the setting that it is, and you come up with a few ideas. I keep my ideas pinned to the cloth so that I don't forget them. But in this case, it sort of was like a fish sort of thing, and I've added a few elements here, and it seemed to me that it was sort of moving between the earth and the sky. So I arbitrarily decided to call this beast Faith. Maybe Faith, the connector of worlds. I like to give them a name and then give them a purpose, and then from there you'll find that the things that you add make sense. So in this case here, I've jotted down, since I've already pinned a few wings on here, a multi-winged wild thing, and maybe the keeper of the desire to fly, or maybe the master of mystery flight. Usually I give the name and then I call it a keeper or a giver or a teacher or a master or even a bringer, to give it some kind of action and purpose. So you get the idea there. It really helps to get closer to your character if you give it a name. I have no name for this one yet. Actually, I have no name for many of these, so unless we look at the lizard here, we could call the lizard maybe Liz. Anyway, you get the idea there. And then you're going to start sort of playing with elements according to your name, or you keep going with that. And one thing that I find really handy is to do some printouts. Take a photograph. You could also use computer graphics here if you're handy with that. But it's a handy thing to have before you start actually sewing or drawing directly on your fabric. To have multiple, I printed these in black and white so not to waste the colored ink. To have multiple shots of your image so that you can start, drawing. And this is a great way to practice your drawing too. I mean, maybe you want to put teeth, maybe you want antennas. But it gives you different options for different eyes, maybe different arrangements, different wing shapes. Maybe you want to test out some things you might want to stitch. But this is a great tool, especially if you're not comfortable with the pen or you're unsure of how to proceed. And the last thing I want to talk about today is how I place the elements. The patchwork method is really about seams. And seams to me are something to be honored in terms of sewing. I mean, seaming can even be defined as sewing. And what I like to do is place the elements relative to the seam. And what I'll do a lot of times is just take something I'm using and just actually fold it over. Got a fly on me here. And kind of crease it and actually place it right up against the seam. And I'll use my invisible base to glue all these down. But what I like about this is that it carries forward the patchwork idea. You can see I've got the head folded down here too against this seam. So I use the seams as guides, and I tend to do that initial turn to make that a non-ragged edge, as if it's almost a piece of patchwork. And then going forward on the outsides, I might turn that or I might leave that ragged. But at least there's some sort of anchor to the seam itself. You can see I even place the elements against the seams. I might even, like if I wanted to extend this guy here, I would fold that under and place it against there, so it actually looks like it's be part of the patchwork. And that's a trick in a lot of my work. I've done it here. It kind of adds to the patchwork idea and starts to confuse the viewer as to which pieces are patched and which pieces are applied.